Aloha kakahiaka. I'm Osa Tui, President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association, and it is my pleasure to announce today HSTA's recommendation of Jill Tokuda to represent rural Oahu and the neighbor islands of Hawaii in the U.S. House of Representatives. Jill has been my classmate since 7th grade, when we both attended King Intermediate and later graduated from Castle High School. I got to know her drive firsthand before we were even classmates. At the end of 6th grade, at leadership camp at Camp Erdman in Mokuleia, I from Kapunahala Elementary School and Ronald, another one of our classmates from Pu'ohala Elementary, ran against Jill from Kaneohe Elementary for 7th grade student council. She absolutely destroyed us. From then on, I got to witness firsthand the key qualities that were for certain about Jill. She's determined, she's dedicated, and she's driven to succeed. Jill, Ronald, and I, as public school graduates, we came out just fine. Ronald went on to become a leader in the medical field here. I'm fortunate to be a teacher and president of HSTA. And Jill went on to become a state senator and will be an amazing congresswoman from the state of Hawaii. We all want Hawaii students to succeed, and Jill is no different. With her husband Kyle, who is also our classmate, they've made the choice to send their 2 boys to the public schools that we attended. In that way, Jill has even more skin in the game to ensure that all keiki of Hawaii have opportunities to succeed. When the congressional seat opened up with the incumbent seeking another office, it was a fitting choice for Jill to jump into that race. She's had a wonderful working relationship with Senator Mazie Hirono from when she was just a student. She went to college right there in DC and got to see firsthand how things work in our nation's capital. And she will be a great partner in Hawaii's congressional delegation to ensure that we hold strong against the existential threats that are attempting to tear down our democracy from within. Here at home, as a member of Hawaii's Senate and chair of the Education Committee, she championed many causes to help improve Hawaii's educational system and will continue to champion causes in DC that benefit us and our keiki right here at home. She's spoken out forcefully on issues and will stand up for what she believes is right for the people, even if it is hurting her in the political arena. We need someone like Jill, who is committed to being our voice in DC and who will work tirelessly to fight for our keiki and our communities. Once again, it is my honor and privilege to announce HSTA's strong recommendation of my longtime friend, Jill Tokuda, to represent Hawaii's Congressional District 2.
Well, thank you, Osa, for those very kind remarks, and at least you shared some of the nicer stories about me. But I will say this, that had it not been for Osa, I would never have gotten through algebra, trigonometry, calculus. He definitely was the one to help me through all of those years. But one thing that we both have in common, and my son, Matt, here as well, who's going to be a 9th grader at Castle next year, is we had teachers. We had teachers in our life every single day that cared about us. You know, when I think back to the first teacher that talked to me about college, and I was the first in my family to actually go to college, the first teacher that talked to me about even taking a trip to the mainland, visiting DC, it was a public school teacher. They understood the need for all of us to have hope, to really understand that there was nothing impossible that we could do. They opened doors for us. And that's why today's recommendation from HSTA really means a whole lot to me. It's very personal, because when I look back at my start, who really helped give me a chance and a shot? It was a teacher. And now when I look at our 2 sons, Matt going to Castle next year, the 4th generation in our family to go to Castle High School, and our son Aiden, who couldn't be here today with us, but he's going to be a 7th grader at King Intermediate. I feel so blessed, so honored, so humbled, and feel so good for me to know that they also have teachers in their life that care about them and is really focused on giving them hope for their future. And so I'm just so proud for this recommendation, but more so, I'm ready to go, because we got to fight in DC to make sure that every single teacher, not just in our state, but across our country, gets the support that they absolutely deserve to do the huge jobs that they do every single day. So thank you, Osa. Thank you, everyone, for this humbling honor. But more importantly, I really look forward to being a partner and a continued ally in the fight to make sure that public education is #1 and we put our teachers first. So thank you again, and let's get out there and see you out there on the trail.
Next up, we have from the Maui chapter, our Vice President, Lisa Morrison. Secretary Treasurer.
I appreciate the promotion, though.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. I'm Lisa Morrison, a teacher from Maui, and I just wanted to add my perspective to President Tui's remarks about Ms. Tokuda. For those of us on the neighboring islands, it can be challenging to get to know candidates that originate from Oahu, but Jill Tokuda has already demonstrated a commitment beyond Oahu. As the external director for the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center on my home island of Maui, she's helped the center expand its physical building and its programming, honoring the legacy of our veterans and inspiring another generation to serve as selflessly. It matters to me as well that Jill sends her own children to public school in Hawaii as a parent, something that I think is less common than it should be among our legislators. And she believes in the strength of our public schools to educate our future leaders, and that speaks volumes about her trust in public school educators. So she has my vote to represent me in Congressional District 2. Mahalo.
Next up from our Hilo chapter, our Government Relations Chairperson, Hope McKean.
Aloha, I'm Hope Puelani McKean. I am a kumu ike Hawaii at Keonepoko Elementary School in the District of Puna on Hawaii Island. I am the chair of the Hawaii State Teachers Association's Government Relations Committee. This committee is composed of representatives from each chapter. At HSTA, we go through a very rigorous interview process of any candidate that seeks our recommendation. One olelo no'eau that came to my mind after interviewing Joe was mai ka'ike kalo i ka oha. The goodness of the kalo is shown by the offspring it produces. Many ohana in Hawaii are struggling, and in turn, so is our next generation. When we interviewed Jill, it was clear that she was committed to fighting for our ohana in Hawaii to have affordable housing and a quality education. We are pleased to offer our strong support for Jill Tokuda to represent rural Oahu and the neighbor islands in Congress.
Mahalo. And with that, we'll open up to questions.
Jill, a couple questions for you, if you don't mind. If elected to Congress, what kinds of things can you do to help improve public education, and what you touched on it in your remarks earlier?
Absolutely. You know, I think when we take a look at public education, it is about increasing all possible funds coming towards our schools to support educators. But when we look at the workforce that's really doing the job of lifting up our students and lifting up our schools, I think we can do better. When we think about the support services, whether it's housing that teachers and school professionals can afford and should have first right of refusal and access to, we've got to be able to do that. When we look at access to basic things like healthcare, you know, when we look at teachers, they're not just the ones sitting behind the desk grading the papers for our children. They're raising families and children, taking care of loved ones on their own. How are we now supporting them as well? So when it comes to making sure, especially in our rural communities, that they have access to healthcare and mental health services, that is top of mind for me. And at the end of the day, can we create financial incentives to put more in the pockets of those who are helping us? And I think that's a real opportunity the federal government has to really support those who support our children and our loved ones every single day. And so that's the kind of things that I'm going to fight for. But more importantly, too, first things first, sitting down and talking and listening to our teachers and really understanding where those needs are, what we can do together, and then fighting for those things and making it a priority. So what I always believe in, and I learned that from a teacher, listen first and then fight together.
Earlier you were touching on, the support you received from public school teachers as a student in Kaneohe public schools growing up on the windward side of Oahu. Do you have a specific, is there a teacher or two, with a specific story or something, someone who really...
I've got a few back here, too, actually. Where's one? You know, I do, and then I feel like I'm gonna kick myself later because there's so many, like I said, teachers that were a part of my life, continue to be a part of my life. If anyone came to my office when I was in the state senate, you always found a teacher sitting in there that was really helping to advise me and still schooling me and giving me homework too. So teachers have always been there, but when I think about one, I do think about Mrs. Shinzato. She, was with me from the 9th grade to the 12th grade. She made sure I had access to Model UN, Con, helped with debate and speech coaches. I mean, all these things take so much time out of your day, but more importantly too, I remember she told me about a program called Close Up that took kids to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia and New York. And for a lot of us, we couldn't afford it. So being the one to help us fundraise, make that possible, she took me on my very first trip to the mainland. It wasn't my parents, it was Mrs. Shinzato, and really opened my eyes to what D.C. was like. I remember going on that trip and thinking to myself, I want to be back. This is where I want to be. And had it not been for Ms. Shinzato to really make that possible, to open doors that I didn't even know were there for me, we wouldn't be having this press conference today. So, a big shout out for me to Ms. Shinzato, who's still out there in Kaneohe, and just, mahalo her for really giving me hope as a student and so many other students at Castle High School.
All right, so ballots will be coming home very soon, and we ask those in Congressional District 2, if there's someone to vote for Jill Tokuda. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today.